article is from a scientific magazine. I'm also pulling from from Jurist, which is a legal news and commentary, where someone published an op-ed last September talking about like what they're basically going to do. And so just a trigger warning, because I'm going to talk a little bit about what they did and what this plan is. A mask will be placed and adjusted on the condemned prisoner's face, and never before has this method of execution been used. And the question then is how successful or how effective the executioners are at fixing the new gas mask, because any kind of leakage will prolong, will make the death that much more torturous, right? Because you're getting leakage of the gas. Even before considering the horror, the gasping and choking for an extended, intolerable period of time, as well as the grievous dangers to all present should the mask not be properly affixed before nitrogen is introduced, it's useful to pause and recall without much effort the fact that Alabama executioners have patently and serially screwed up so many executions in recent years, it's hard to keep track of them all. And literally, this is a Jurist website, so they're not known to be hyperbolic.
Right.
They literally got, in 2022, they got an F in human rights, in terms of like the use of the use of capital punishment against prisoners, and
they're hoping to get that up to a D-,
right, and how cruel and unusual it is. And they have failed multiple times to actually execute people efficiently, in the sense that like you kill them without torturing them first. So Alabama has a long and storied history. Just recently, I'm not even talking about like way back in the slave days. I'm talking about like currently.
You're not even going back to the time when they would just hang a guy and see what happened. You know, maybe it kills him quick. Maybe it pops his head off. Who knows? Right. Let's see what happens.
So basically, their point is that this is inhumane in the best of circumstances, but Alabama has never been the best of circumstances. No offense to anybody who lives there, but it is like a series of human rights violations. And yeah, so I mean, and there's a lot in this in this article that points out how difficult it is to control these gases, and like in terms of affecting the other people there, who, like, I'm not saying that I like executioners, but I'm sure they didn't dream of becoming an executioner as a kid. And
I read an article about how that followed executioners, because they don't sign up for executioner. They have other duties, and then they end up getting put in that job. And many of them end up with crazy long-term trauma, including the other ones that maybe don't flip the switch, but they are involved in the whole process. And they all end up with this, or almost all of them end up in this, unless they're psychopaths, with this crazy trauma. And of course, none of that is considered. It's just like, it's your job. You go and put the needle in the guy, and yeah.
So this is absolutely horrifying, and I have not seen reports on what happened specifically yesterday, but this is considered to be a method that is A-okay. And one of the reasons that, and Alabama's not the only state that's shifting towards using gas, but some of the pharmaceutical companies that were doing the lethal injection drugs stopped giving them to states because of the fact that they were misusing them and essentially torturing people before they killed them. Like the lethal injection is supposed to be a more humane way of killing someone. And there were multiple cases where people were screaming in agony for a prolonged period of time, saying that it felt like they were being burned from the inside. And like, so obviously not more humane.
So back during the Trump administration was when a lot of this happened. Multiple countries stopped shipping these chemicals to the U.S. because they realized they were being used for murdering people. And then the Trump administration said they were going to start stockpiling as much of the chemical as they could so that they could keep killing people as the countries cut them off. And of course, you know, the numbers are that at minimum 5% of everyone executed is like fully innocent, but that's not even counting the ones that, yeah, they murdered someone, but it was in self-defense or it was accidental or whatever other reason. And, you know, just the other day, I went through all of the arguments for capital punishment and explained how ridiculous every last one of those are. It is just a barbaric, stupid thing to do. And yet here we are acting like we're in the goddamn Stone Age.
Well, and I actually remember, I don't know if, I don't think he still does this, but my dad used to be brought on as an expert in discussing and in trying to shift cases from the death penalty to life in prison based on the history of the person who was the defendant, and like the history of like the social history of that area as well. And so it was predominantly Black people on death row, and he was trying to make the case that, like, okay, the societal situations in which this crime was committed speak enough to say that this person does not deserve to be killed for what they did. And this is like either instances of, like, you know, a cop like kills this guy's little brother or something, and then he kills the cop, and it's like,
yeah,
okay, well, you can stand there and say it's wrong to kill a cop. I don't know if I'm going to stand there and say that, but one could. But you cannot say that this happened in this random vacuum where race and class and the power hierarchy have play no role. So even in the cases where it's like very clear cut, like, yes, this person killed this other person, it's like the idea that they then deserve to die again speaks to the absolute moral bankruptcy of the United States. And of course, adding, you know, again, the point that most of the people on death row, because most of the people in prison are not white. And so this entire entity of the United States as a racist settler colonial state is very present in that microcosm.
Yeah, that's just one of the ways that capital punishment is racist. Also, the number one determinant of who gets executed is the race of the victim, because we view murdering a Black person as not that big a deal, but murdering a white person is a far bigger deal in our society because white people are awesome. And so that's yet another way that this thing is racist. The capital punishment is racist, but there are multiple levels of racism going on.
And even just looking at like the numbers that aren't even counted, like the movement for missing and murdered Indigenous women and Two-Spirits, like this is we don't even have appropriate numbers on this because it's not deemed as important.
They don't
because
even keep track of
Indigenous
it.
people are just not as important as white people. So why should we even count it? You know, like it's